Welcome to the Vet Show. This is episode number 8, part of the Coach Robb Podcast Network and presented by Complete Med Solutions. Coach Robb, how are we doing this morning?
Hey, I am doing great, buddy. It's always good to see you. And man, we're on show number 8 already. What is going on?
No.
What is going on?
Well, time's flying. Yeah, jinx.
I guess that's why they called them the flying cards, right? You're the rating card you were talking about a couple shows ago.
Okay, number 8. Who comes to mind?
Man, the one that jumps out to me is good old Grant Langston.
I love GL.
Yeah, GL is the one that jumped out the most at me. And then behind that would have been my buddy Jeff Emig. Those are the two when I think of number 8 that jump out. The more I think about it, I've got a couple more. I'll see if you bring it up or not. How about you? What do you have for number 8?
The Beast from the East, Damon Bradshaw. That one always sticks out as number 8 to me. It's a good one.
Yep.
And then Grant Langston. Those are probably the two in my era, but I did know that some guys like Jean-Michel Bale ran 8. Kevin Windham ran 8 at one point in his career. There's a couple others, but yeah, those.
For some reason, go ahead. Yeah.
We don't have a number 8 currently.
That's a good point.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah, that is. Well, and then it makes you wonder, like, the stigma that goes with running number 4. Like, some people think that when Baggett took number 4 is like, wow, that's some pretty big shoes to fill. And, that obviously with Sexton going to it in the whole 9 yards. So yeah, I think it is interesting that we don't have anybody in there, especially when you have big ones like Bradshaw, Wyndham. For some reason, Greg Albertine always jumps out on that Suzuki with the number 8.
Oh yeah.
You've got the French Invasion with Jean-Michel Bale. But if you're asking me, if you and I were sitting across from each other having a craft beer, you said, who do you think of number 8? It would have to be Langston and Emig right off the bat for me. You can't beat the Beast of the East, though. That's a good one.
You said craft beer, Coach. You know that I can't drink that Road Tar IPA crap. Give me a silver bullet and I'm good to go. But I love it. Anytime I'll have a beer with you, brother.
Hey, I bet you if we were able to get some of our listeners, when you think of Bradshaw, what's the first thing that comes right behind Bradshaw? I'm just curious. And by the way, I did not ask for the listeners, I did not pre-script this because we don't script our shows. When you think Bradshaw, what's right in the same sentence?
I mean, do you really want to know?
Yes.
The listeners are going to laugh at this, I think, but
that's okay.
Whenever I think of Bradshaw, I think of Dark Side. Okay. Dark Side wrecked Damon Bradshaw's bike.
Gotcha.
Do you remember all that? Did you hear about all that?
I'm embarrassed to say I don't even know who Darkside is. I've heard his name a few times, but I would know him if he walked up to me. I don't even know how his name became in our network.
His name is Jamie Guida. He works for Vital MX. Okay. He's a journalist, but he went and did a ride day with a bunch of Yamaha guys and ended up wrecking Damon Bradshaw's bike. And it's like, I don't know. Every time I talk to him or see him, I just have to give him a little dig, but I know it kind of sounds silly, but.
No, I was just curious because I can't think of Bradshaw without thinking about Matasevich and just the antics between those two. I don't think, and again, the listeners could correct me. I can't think of anybody who had such a visceral relationship that we all loved and loved to hate it and hated to love it, but it was there. It didn't matter if they were in Europe. It didn't matter. Like there's that one, I think they're in Japan or something. And like literally Matasevich just like almost jumps over the hay bales and just completely ghost rides his bike and slams Bradshaw into the wall. I don't know. For me, I can't ever separate Bradshaw from Matasevich. If I see chicken, I always think of Bradshaw and vice versa. So, yeah, we could talk about number 8 all day long because I'm sure you got memories of Wyndham and Albertine and Purcell.
Oh, yeah.
Good numbers. But yeah. And out of the way, the feedback we've gotten from the listeners is they enjoy that part of the show. So.
When next month, which is going to be our next episode, is going to be the one that's going to sit near and dear to my heart, and that's episode number 9, which I'm sure you know why.
The one and only AC. It can't be anybody but
AC, exactly. So I'm
partial because working with AC on Super Minis, I always remember AC as 92. I thought he should have stuck with 92, like with Roxon with 94, I know that he's got a single digit and that's huge, but I just think from a marketability standpoint, the 92 was always AC.
And he should have. He absolutely should have. And I'll tell you, when he ran 92, in practice at Salt Lake City.
How cool was that?
It brought a tear to my eye. It was
Yep.
it was the coolest thing ever. So
Well, it's like that neck brace that I sent you. He's got that little 92. I mean, the stuff that he marketed with that 92 back, think about it. He was kind of the pre-Deegan. He kind of had that marketing, momentum. Unfortunately, the social media wasn't what it is today. Otherwise, I think you would have seen AC be, probably right up there with Deegan, because as so many people have seen and witnessed themselves, when AC was on a super mini at Loretta's, there'd be 12 people deep at the fence just to watch it.
Yeah.
Whether I always thought it was a little disrespectful. People called him Baby Jesus. It's like they were jealous of his. Yes, Mitch Payton poured into him in a very big way, but yeah, he was probably, and I've said this publicly, one of the hardest workers I've ever had. So to me, I never felt like it fell on his lap. He worked his tail end off. His parents were all in, you know what I mean? And
Yep.
his parents were independently wealthy. They weren't living off of his race winnings, unlike a lot of other people we know. Which to me made it even cooler because the parents were all in for Adam, which I think is cool.
Well, we shouldn't get ahead of ourselves. We still got to get to number 9, which you spilled, but I do want you to gather your best AC memories and whatnot from when he was a kid, because I'm going to expect those on episode number 9.
You got it, buddy.
And then listen, we can't talk about anybody else on episode number 9 but AC.
Fair enough. It's your show too. So
deal. So I want to let the listeners know that we've been putting our heads together, and we've been really trying to plan the podcasts out for the foreseeable future. And I believe, Coach, we have a really good roadmap ahead of us to help all of our vet riders achieve the goals and get to the performance that they want out of themselves, whether that's just to get in better shape to go be a weekend warrior, to go to Loretta's, right, and win titles. So we want to make sure that everybody reaches their goals for 2025. Man, that sounds crazy. It's already here, 2025, or damn near here.
Yeah, exactly.
But the first thing, Coach, and I think about this time of year, right? This time of year, it's November of 24. All of our pro riders, right, are in their boot camps, and they're preparing for the 2025 Supercross season. And I don't know about you, Coach, but in the past, I've always thought about the time, if AC is getting ready for Anaheim 1, I'm going to get myself ready for the upcoming race season as well, right? But you have to stop and think, right? What goals do you want to accomplish, and what is your frustrations, right? And what is the difference between that goal and the frustration, right? We all have these intentions on getting into better shape and eating cleaner, but we don't necessarily start at ground zero, set the goals for ourselves, and figure out how to get there and what we need to do to get there. And I kind of wanted to pick your brain about that today and how we get there, how to set those goals, what should be our expectations, and then also tease what may be coming in the next episode. And that is really, at the end of the day, right, we want to be strong. You got to be strong to be on the motorcycle, to perform, and to ride safely. So, Coach, let's start with setting goals and getting some base metrics for yourself.
Yeah, I like the way that you introduced that, because if I were to ask anybody that watches this show or listens to it, go back and look at your quote unquote New Year's resolutions in 23 and then compare them to the beginning of 2024. Let's just say, for illustration purposes, you came up with 5 definitive things. Probably 4 of those were on the same list the year before, and the year before, and the year before that.
Hey, can I stop you real quick?
Absolutely, bud.
This just, you struck a nerve with me. I think you'll agree with me. So the listeners are going to be hearing this in December, right? This is going to be dropping in December, the 1st of December. And you just said New Year's resolution. And I don't know about you, but anytime that I have set a New Year's resolution for myself, it's bombed every single time. Because it's just like one of those things like you do because everybody else does. And you're going to post on Facebook, what your New Year's resolution is to be but really, truly, is it really your New Year's resolution? Because in my mind, Coach, when you're ready to start something and ready to make a change, you should start today, not putting a date on it as a New Year's resolution. Does that make sense?
No, it makes plenty of sense. And being in the human performance world, when we get into this next month here, I mean, we'll be going on year number 38 for ourselves as a company. And all jokes aside, if you were to listen on this side of the conversation, it's always the same conversation. That's why I really appreciate everybody who's subscribed and is making this kind of part of their podcast list. I want this to be the year that you're going to break that trend, if you will. Depending on how old you are and you're listening to this podcast, some of you might have 30 years of this same New Year's resolutions. As the old saying goes, right? You get to the third week of January and you're like, oh, F it. I've already messed it up. I'll start again next year. I mean, there's so many of those Instagram pictures that float around, but I think it really does resonate with most of us where it's like, yeah. And I think when I make the comment, I think goals are useless. You have to stay focused on frustrations. I think you just articulated it beautifully at the beginning of this entire show. Because New Year's resolutions, it's great to write them down. My question is, as we sit here at the 12th month of the year, what kept you from being able to make those goals a reality? And, we're going to talk a little bit about this over the next 12 months, right? What is confidence? Where does confidence come from? How do you improve it? Why does it even elude us? What actually is it? What is it not? Fear. Can you manage fear, or does fear manage you? Do the best athletes in the world, they're not afraid of anything? We're going to get into all these little nuances because unfortunately you can't just say, I want to be faster. Just to give a completely different example. And I've asked you publicly, how many moving parts are there on a motorcycle? All we know is that when we hit that start button or we hit that Kickstarter, we anticipate it's going to fire. We don't stop and think about all the moving parts that gets that thing. And as we've talked about in the show, it cranks up, you pull that clutch in and you push that little foot lever. You just anticipate that the gears are going to go in. They're going to engage. You anticipate you let that clutch out. How many moving parts are associated with just that clutch? Between the clutch plates, the basket, the cables, a lot. But we don't think about it. It just happens. And that's what I love about the opportunity to get in front of this many people and talk about it. The year's over. You put the bike in gear how many times this year and it never went forward? Well, now you're at the end of the year and that list is now reiterating itself going into the new year. Want to be a little leaner, want to be a little faster, want to, maybe have maybe make some adjustments to our behavior, maybe some bad habits. Now, again, when I say bad, I don't think anybody, and everybody knows you and I's background. We're not into the politically correct comments. I'm saying when we say there's no judgment, I'm sure I would be more than happy to confide on my weaknesses to anybody who wants to know, right? There's times I wish I got more sleep. Well, if I'm working on launching something, yeah, sometimes I don't get as much sleep. So I don't live in a glass house. I hope none of the listeners think that you and I do. We don't,
Coach,
I ever want to come away.
I had a donut this morning. I'm just going to confess.
No, that's good. I appreciate the honesty and the transparency, right? And like last night, I always try to get 8 hours of sleep, but I'm working on this one small project and I needed some uninterrupted time. So once everybody was tucked in bed and safe, I went back into the office until midnight because I knew I would have no interruptions. And I don't know if that would be the best sending board, to go to this more of a 10,000 foot view, because that's really where I want to start this entire conversation. Think about why you didn't get done what was on your list. I'm not even going to call it New Year's resolutions. We're going to refer to it as the list, right? We all make a list of things that we want to do. We want to get out of debt. We want to lose 25 pounds. We want to, pay off a credit card, whatever. Everybody's got their pain point. My question to you is, why hasn't it happened? Now,
I'll tell you exactly why. For me, is I've got a job, I've got businesses, I do the podcast, I've got a family, I try to ride. It's time.
Yes,
time is the ultimate challenge.
Well, I think most of the listeners know we do a lot of business consulting and we do a corporate wellness program. And the wealthiest people in the world and the most productive and profitable companies realize that time is worth more money than value. Time is more valuable than money because they'll spend money to get where they want to go to do it correctly. I'm going to hire a consultant that's going to help me get this program. I'm going to hire a consultant to get this done. Wealthy people realize you cannot outwork somebody else. If I decide that I'm going to work out an hour a day, Dan could work out an hour a day. If Rob works out 2 hours a day, Dan can work out 3 hours a day until we get to a point that we're both working out 24 hours a day. You get to a point where you cannot outwork. What you have to do is out leverage. So especially with us being the over the 30 gang, right? All of us have different things. Some of us have family, some don't have a family. So does that mean somebody has an advantage? No, they have different scenarios. Some people work for a company, some people own a company. Does one have an advantage over the other? No, just different scenarios. Somebody's faster than somebody else. Is that because they turn better or is that because they jump better? It doesn't matter. It's just different scenarios. Because I can work on fill in the blank. I can work on my cornering. I can work on my time management. I can work on my budgeting. I can work on my diet. Just different scenarios, all with the what? Same goal of wanting to win. And I say this very politely, and I'm only going to say it one time. I don't want to sound disrespectful when I say goals are useless. We all have to be motivated, but what I'm asking for is a slight paradigm shift. Goals are incredibly important, right? We don't get married and say, oh, we're married, now we can stop. No, you work on being married. You don't get healthy and go, yep, I'm healthy, I'm done. You work on getting healthy, and then you work on staying healthy, just like you work on getting married, and then you work on staying married. You work on building a business. Once it's successful, you keep working on making it better. That's the paradigm shift. It's not a lack of goals. It's the frustrations that have gotten in the way that have kept you from doing it. And 100% of the time, it comes down to the availability of time. And that's where I want, if you're okay with it, Dan, I don't want to jump ahead of your thread of thought here. I want everybody, if they would, before our next show, do it for 1 day, do it for 2, do it for as many days as you can mentally put up with it. What did you outline that you were going to get done today? And at the end of the day, what did you actually get done? It's a little bit tedious at first, but if you say that you're going to get 9 hours of sleep, then as you're listening to this show, you should be able to show me what time you went to bed and what time you got up this morning, because we all know what time we need to start our day. Well, if you know that you've got to start your day at 7 a.m. and you want 8 hours of sleep, what time are you going to go to bed, knowing what time you have to get up? It's one thing to say it, show me that you did it.
Yeah. And that's the part that's is tough, right? It's tough for most people.
It's tough for everybody.
Tough. It is. But I would say that I don't want to like paint everybody into the same corner, but for us vet guys, right, or gals that we have families, and it really takes a lot of effort to do this, because you have to think about actually doing it, because it's so easy to not do it or to find an excuse or find something why you can't do it.
Right.
I find it where I have to like write stuff down, right? For me, if I make a list, where I have to look down on my list, say, okay, I have to drink, 100 ounces of water today. I'm going to drink 25, 25 ounces here, 25 ounces by this time. And I literally, Coach, have to cross it off my list that I did it, because that remotivates me to get to the next thing on my list. That's what I do, right? But it's extra effort. Like I have to put the effort in to do that versus just saying I'm going to do it.
You hit on several things that get into some deep psychology. Number one, by you checking it off, there's that sense of accomplishment. You get that little jolt of dopamine that says accomplished. And the other side of it is you've got to set yourself up for success. I've said this publicly, so for those of you who've heard it before, I apologize for the repetitive example, but if Eli Tomac likes chicken cordon bleu and he likes a certain type of water, he likes a mineral water, he likes it cold, he likes certain types of foods, and then all of a sudden Tomac shows up and Alpine Star serves him up a pair of boots that are one size too small. They set him up with a set of gloves that are a little too small. His helmet's one size too small. Instead of having a low profile seat, they put an oversized with a big rib on the back of it. It's got a big carve out. They run oversized grips. Everyone would go, well, that's ridiculous. Okay, pause the music. You're no different. If Tomac wants a certain type of waffle grip, he wants a certain type of seat, height, softness, stiffness, rib, non-rib, cut out, carved out. If he wants his pegs a certain width, a certain height, where are yours? The difference is Tomac says it and everybody does it. Unfortunately for the vet, every vet rider has to do it. They're the financier, they're the mechanic, they're the cheerleader. And then if you have little ones that are racing as well, right? You're doing yours times, you're scaling it 3, 4, 5 times over because that little one's running 2 classes, plus you might be running 2 classes. And I just want everybody to take a deep breath because it's all about creating an environment where there's the least amount of restriction. And you just articulated it. Hey, you have to take the time to write it down. So what you've got to do is create up a process and a system. Maybe it's just a Word document that every day you just hit print and it prints it out and you lay it on your desk. Maybe it's just you whip out a Post-it note and every hash mark is 10 ounces until you get to that 80 ounces or whatever you said you were at. We're really starting to get into the nuts and bolts that you can't control time. You can only control yourself. You've got to create an environment that has the least amount of friction, which obviously sets up the statistical chances of getting it accomplished. And then you have to, this is where I'm going to be asking a lot of questions for the listeners, because I want, if anybody's, distracted, please stop and pay attention. The brain always responds to a question. Let me give you an example. What color is your truck? What did you eat for breakfast? What color is the sky? As I'm asking those questions, I have captured your undivided attention. Not one time when I was asking, if I truly had your undivided attention and you were thinking about the color of your truck and the color of the sky, there was nothing else going on in your brain. So what it validates is when you ask a question, the brain has its undivided attention. You have the brain's undivided attention, and you have to be careful what questions you ask it. That's where this gets into some really deep psychology. It's easy to say, oh, you didn't get your New Year's resolutions done. Is that a question or is that a statement? Is that a declaration? Is that a punch in the gut? Right? So when I'm asking you what kept you from getting your New Year's resolutions accomplished, it's about getting your attention to go, was it time management? Was it a resource thing? Was it everybody, and I'm going to say this very, very sincerely. There's a difference between an explanation and an excuse. If you had to put your mom in a nursing home, if you found out your dog has cancer, if your business partner embezzled $1 million from you, that's not an excuse. Those are realities. That's an explanation of what you had to deal with, not an excuse. An excuse is on your calendar, you blocked out 30 minutes to go to the gym, lift or do cardio, maybe go sit in a sauna, do contrast therapy, right? Most everybody thinks the gym's got to be a pain den. No, go to the gym and do contrast therapy. That's what you need today, physically and mentally. But my point is when you have that 30 minutes and you look back at your day and you're watching reruns of Bar to Bar, okay, well, that's an excuse. But if your dog got sick, or we just recently rescued a dog, that's why it's kind of on my mind. But, if your child came down with the flu and you had to stay home and your partner had to work and you weren't able to go to the gym because you're taking care of your young daughter, that's you being your daughter's dad. That's awesome, right? She's never going to forget that. But that's not an excuse. That's an explanation. You see the difference? I want to make sure I'm explaining that clearly.
Yeah, definitely.
So the question is, when you look back at the last year, what kept you from accomplishing your goals? It's not a lack of a goal being established, maybe for some, but that's usually less than 1%. It's the frustrations of not having enough time. That's really what it boils down to, because you can't manage time. You can only manage yourself. So if I get all the listeners to create a projected schedule for tomorrow, and then as the day is going through, it takes 9 seconds. Hey, I was supposed to be driving to work from 8 to 8:30, but I actually didn't get a chance to leave until 8:20. Why were you running late? This isn't about smacking you on the hand. It's, oh, well, I didn't realize that I had packed nothing for dinner. Okay, cool. Or excuse me, I didn't pack anything for lunch today because I didn't make a small package of what we ate for dinner. Okay, fix it tonight. No big deal. You didn't screw the pooch. Now when you make dinner tonight, make sure that you overcook. So that way you already know what's in your dinner. You just made it, make more of it. And then when you're done, put that in Tupperware. And now you've got your lunch for tomorrow. Because what we're trying to do is reverse engineer success. If I know what I ate for dinner was considered healthy, right? Didn't come out of a box, a can. I mean, to some extent, canned beans is not screwing the pooch. But my point is, you make some homemade spaghetti, well, then you make a Tupperware of that. You just throw some fresh fruit, wash it, throw it in another thing of Tupperware. The next morning when you get ready to walk out the door, you're just grabbing 3 things of Tupperware. You've got your chili, you've got your fruit salad, you've got your snacks over here, you've got your mixed nuts. Now you're leaving tomorrow at 8 o'clock because that's when you said you were going to hit the road, not 8:20. We've talked about it before. Why does somebody hit the drive-through? Well, because they look over in their seat and they're like, dadgummit, I don't have my cooler. Well, that's not the problem. Why don't you have a cooler? Well, because there was nothing in the fridge. Oh, wait, there was food in the fridge, but it wasn't packed. Oh, okay. Well, no, there was no food in the fridge. Okay, well, that's still not the problem. The problem is you didn't take time in your week to go buy food, to get it in the refrigerator. There was no time in your schedule to cook the food. Therefore, there's no cooler in the car because there's no food to put in the cooler. Reverse engineer it. Because all I did right there was just ask you questions. Why isn't the cooler there? Because there was no food in it. Why? Because there was no food in the fridge. Oh, there was food in the fridge. Oh, it wasn't prepped. It wasn't cooked. It wasn't packed. All right. Why wasn't it packed? Oh, because there was no food. All right. That's why you couldn't cook it. See, the question is, why didn't you cook it? Well, I didn't get to go to the grocery store. My question is, why didn't you get to the grocery store? Well, my son had baseball practice. Okay. Well, he's probably going to have baseball practice tomorrow. He's probably going to have baseball practice the next day. So that's not going to change. So you got to figure out a different time to get your food bought. Or, and this is going to sound very harsh, and I don't mean for it to, then take your kids out of baseball.
Yeah.
You can't complain what you can't do. Like you said earlier, it's time. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And it really starts with the will, right? Do you have the will? As you know, you got to ask yourself, do I have the will to change to better manage time?
That's the $1 million question. If you study Bezos from Amazon, he will not allow a meeting before 10 a.m. He will not show up. Now someone's going to say, yeah, it's nice when you're a billionaire. Just go with me for illustration purposes. You just commented, it's the will. When you make that decision, it's not that you're saying you can't take your son or daughter to soccer practice. You're doing a cost benefit ratio. If you want to be there for your son or daughter in their soccer game, that's incredibly cool. But you can't be 2 places at one time. And so that's why the projected versus actual is so important. Because if you weren't driving at 8:30, at 8 o'clock to get to work on time by 8:30, all you're doing is documenting why you left at 8:20 and then fix it.
Yeah.
Now, what you are going to find, especially with these cell phones, is a lot of it is the cell phone eating up a lot of time. It's 3 minutes on Instagram. It's 4 minutes on Facebook. It really, really, and I think everybody's aware of this, but you can go to your settings on your phone and it'll tell you what your screen time was, and it will partition off what you spent that screen time doing. Start there.
I get that report every Sunday on my phone, Coach. And I'll admit, it almost made me throw up. It was disgusting. I mean, it was absolutely disgusting, the amount of time that I spent on my phone this week. And it's just like, man, it's so much time that I could be doing something else. It's just like, and then you think, for what? Because then what it makes me do is think, okay, what was I doing in that time? Was it constructive? Some of it was, building stuff for my Instagram, for my business, right? But you think of a lot of it was just scrolling on TikTok, watching dumb videos about people miserable about their life, and it's just like,
Yeah.
I really got to start questioning what the hell I'm doing. You know what I mean?
100%. And I'm going to show my age because I'm older than you are by quite a bit. One of the things you have to keep in mind is when we were growing up, the entertainment sat in the TV box. So you had to physically get home, turn the TV on, sit down. Now it's in our hand 24/7, 365. So the entertainment is available all the time. Whatever you want to declare entertainment, watching people kill themselves on YouTube, doing silly things on TikTok, whatever your thing is, right? But this is where, again, I'm going to kind of shift gears a little bit. When we're dealing with our young coaches and we're dealing with entrepreneurs and companies that we help groom, right? You've got to eliminate every distraction known to mankind. And that's what's so difficult. And obviously we didn't script this conversation, as I said earlier. Why did I stay up until midnight last night? Because I needed 3 hours of uninterrupted time. Literally, it's on my calendar. It's blocked out as focused work. Now, what I do is you'll never see me go anywhere without a spiral notebook. Never. Even if Michaela and I are on date night. If you ever see us out, always walk up to me and ask me where my spiral notebook is. I'll guarantee it's on me somewhere. Okay. Might be in a backpack that I'm walking around with or whatever. The reason being, Dan, is when you talked about the idea that you're on Instagram doing business, if it's part of your business plan, you need to get in there and post a new product that's available. Hey, coming soon. Hey, did you know that this product even existed? That's part of your business plan. But when you're going in there and you know that you've given yourself 30 minutes to post about a new product, you've already gone through maybe in your notes or you typed it out and sent it to you as an email and you're copying and pasting it. I have fat fingers, so I type everything on my computer and then I send it to myself and then I copy and paste it. Instead of me trying to do this, if I do the voice activation, every time I say the word writing, it thinks the word writing.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't want to go back and manually adjust it. I know that sounds benign, but the idea here is, to your point, if I'm trying to improve my efficiency, I will type it on my computer, send it to me as an email, go to my phone, open the email, do a control all for every select all, copy it. At least I know it's correct on Instagram. But the point being is, and people may laugh at this, I want you to have a projected schedule that literally tells you go on date night, take the trash out, clean the toilets. And I'm more than happy to share with you, I use Microsoft Outlook. It literally tells me what time I'm waking up, what time I'm going to bed. And don't take this as being arrogant. I don't like to think about things that I don't need to remember. Like, I don't want to remember when the trash goes out, but it pops up on my computer screen an hour before I know the trash man comes, says, take the trash out. I will physically stop what I'm doing and I'll go take the trash out. Otherwise, trash gets backed up. I don't want to think about it. Is that Tuesday or is that Friday? Was it Wednesday? I don't care. It pops up. As dumb as it sounds, clean the toilets. It pops up on mine 2 days a week on Tuesdays and Fridays at 6 p.m. Usually I'm done with in the office at 6 p.m. So it comes up on my watch. It beeps. I just simply, whatever I'm doing, I drop and go do it. Right? It sounds dumb, but if I do it twice a week, it becomes maintenance mode. I'm trying to reduce the amount of friction. If I have to sit in there for 30 minutes to try to scour a bathtub, simply because, and as much as that may seem silly, this is where I said, you've got to leverage time. You can't outwork the work that's got to be done. And then we start getting in, and it's about creating an environment of success, right? If you want to eat good food, food isn't going to fall in your lap. You have to go buy it. That's why, in 100% transparency, that's why we put the books out on Amazon. Because people would say, hey, what should I make out of it for snacks? So we did a snack book. Hey, what should I put in a smoothie? So we did a smoothie book. We have 3 dinner meals, right? And I think they're like $12 or $15. We're not trying to sell products. I'm just trying to fill a need.
And those cookbooks are great. They are incredible. They've saved me so many times because I'm not a good cook, and I feel better, Coach, that those meals are sponsored by you.
Well, I appreciate that very
much. It's not something I found on the internet from some person that doesn't care much about their health.
Well, I appreciate it. And if you've not seen or checked those out, all I do is just go into the grocery store with real food. I'm not going into exotic foods and it's got to be organic and hard to find. No. We all live in the same world. It's got to be realistic. It's got to be convenient. So it's the meal and it's broken down with the ingredients. And then, so there's your shopping list. And then you take those items, literally shows you how to combine them and how to cook them. And then that becomes your lunch for tomorrow. And then you just start stacking them. And that's what I want this first phone call, or this first webinar together as we're discussing this is, I want people to ask themselves, why haven't they fill in the blank? Why haven't you gotten to the gym 3 days a week? It's going to be time management. Why have you not converted to fruits and vegetables? Now, if you're somebody who says, Rob, I have texture issues. Our youngest son has texture issues. It's no joke, right? And my son is not a, snowflake at all, but he's a type of young athlete that if he eats a certain texture, you're going to see it again. He's not voluntarily deciding to vomit, right? It hits his palate. It's coming back up. Well, that's why we created powders. Now, again, it's not a sales pitch. But I've got ground powders that are fruits and vegetables, so you can mix them into a smoothie to make them palatable. It's just a workaround to create an environment of success. It's not artificial ingredients. It's not fabricated. It's literally we take our complete purples, if you will. It's taking blackberries and blueberries, and it just grinds them up, dries them, puts them in a powder form. So then you get like one scoop of it is like having 6 servings of blueberries, blackberries, especially greens, right? All your different green vegetables that a lot of people don't like the texture of. You get the nutrient value, but you just can drink it in a smoothie.
I didn't know you had those, Coach.
Yeah, absolutely.
With that, for me, that's like, that would be easy. That'd be really easy for me.
But notice what we're talking about, reducing friction. I'm not asking you to eat garbage. I'm asking you to eat good food, I mean, our supplements are not inexpensive. I'm the first one to tell you that, but they're not cost prohibitive. What they are is you're getting exactly what you pay for. So when we say it's ground vegetables, it's pure vegetables. If it's ground fruit, it's ground fruit. It's just like our whey protein. It's 100% whey protein, but it's not cheap. But I don't want to be cheap. I want to be giving you the best 100%. But here's the point. Having complete purples is of no value sitting in your cupboard. If you take the time to purchase them, my question is, when are you going to actually make the smoothie? I need to see it in your schedule. So with my clients, literally, we start out by what time are you going to go to bed tonight to get 8 hours of sleep, knowing what time you have to wake up tomorrow. That's where we start. It is the only thing we put on the calendar. The second thing we put on the calendar is, when are you going to purchase, prep, and actually sit and eat, consume food? And I'm going to be really gross here for a moment. I apologize. The next time you go to the restaurant, I want you to watch somebody eat.
Ugh,
I
think I could do it.
It's tough. It's tough. They take the fork, they put it in their mouth. They usually will grab 2, maybe sometimes 3 servings. Watch them. They'll chew once, sometimes twice. Watch their throat. This big clump of food goes down their throat. And now the digestive juices are expected to break down this very, very complex, cumbersome food. We sell a boatload of antacids because people say they have indigestion. Well, it's because you're essentially putting semi-solid food down in your gut. Now, I'm not saying chew it to where it becomes baby food and it's disgusting and it's puree, but literally watch people. They just shovel. They'll take 1 to 2 chews and they'll gulp and then they just start shoveling again. Well, then the people say, well, I have indigestion and I have heartburn and I have all this other stuff. Now, I'm not saying there's not some legitimacy to some of it, but don't make it worse by just not chewing your food, because the absorption starts in your mouth. So put the food in your mouth, put the fork down and actually chew your food. I know that sounds crazy. So when I say, show me when you're going to purchase your food, you got to go to the grocery store. You got to show me. Now, by the way, especially with Amazon now, or I live in the South, so Publix, they'll do home delivery, right? And again, I'm just going here on trying to help. If you look at your grocery list every week, you might have 40, 50% of the same products every week. So making a shopping list is already done for you. If you know you go through a gallon of milk every 3 days, or you go through whatever you go through, well, your shopping list is pretty much set for you. You're just adding stuff to it. My question is, when are you going to sit down and submit that? If you can do it in 8 to 10 minutes, cool. You don't have to drive to the store, didn't have to stand in line. It gets delivered, right? You're buying time. Remember we said earlier, the most wealthy people in the world, they understand the value of time more than money. They're not even going to charge you but a nominal amount of fee. It's going to be less expensive than it would cost you to crank your car up and go to the grocery store, not even factoring in the opportunity cost of time.
Yeah.
And what's great now is you go ahead and you put that order in. Now, that's coming to you on a regular basis. Now I'm going to ask you, when are you going to actually cook it? Well, there's all kinds of food services out now where literally they deliver it and all you do is combine the foods and you can cook it. Or they'll deliver it to you, it's already cooked. All you got to do is heat it up. Now you have to give up some money for it, but it's going to buy you some time. But at least when we get to the end of the year, you won't be so frustrated that I still eat like garbage. Well, what have you done to make it better? Then we get to the idea that you've told me that you're going to, when you purchased it, when you're actually going to sit and consume it, right? When you're going to package the leftovers. So when you give yourself 35, 40 minutes for dinner, if you time it well, while you're cleaning up the dishes and you're packing your food for the next day, you don't have to goof around with it in the morning. It's already done at the end of the day. Now you just bought 20 minutes from tomorrow morning.
Yep.
Get yourself to bed. So when you're doing the time management, block out when you go to bed to get 8 hours of sleep. And I know for some of you, you might be rolling your eyes going, 8 hours of sleep. I haven't seen that in decades. Okay. If you're currently getting 6, try to get 6.5. Don't try to go to 9. Try to just get 30 minutes more. But my question is always going to be, where are you going to pick up that 30 minutes? You either have to go to bed earlier or you have to wake up a little bit later. Otherwise, 30 doesn't get added to the total number. How we're addressing the frustration by asking questions.
Yep.
Nobody would argue with the benefit of sleep. Everybody feels better. All right. Sleep is blocked out. When you're going to purchase, actually prep, consume your food. Now we have to block out school and or work. And it's not just the amount of hours you have to be there. It includes the transit time there, the time you're there, and the time. It's like going and riding, right? Yeah, I've got 3 hours to go ride. Well, by the time you get loaded up, get geared up, by the time you get done riding and you get undressed and get loaded up again, you only got 30 minutes of ride time, but you've been gone for 3 hours.
Yep.
Work is the same way. And if you're not in school, if you're not working and you're in school, same rules apply. When are you going to school? What time are you leaving? What time are you getting back? Now, this is where I'm going to rub people the wrong way. Once you've got sleep and you've got food blocked in and you've got work and or school, this is where you have to factor in the family time. If they've got soccer practice, if you're going to take them riding or whatever you're going to do, when are you going to do it? Block it out. And then what's left is when you get to work out. And that's what pisses people off. Now, this is my wheelhouse, right? This is my sandbox. I play in it every day. But what I've realized over the last 38 years is I have to build workouts based on when you tell me you have 25 minutes, 35 minutes, 65 minutes, not just say, hey, here's a 40-minute workout. And you're like, yeah, it's great. I've only got 20 minutes. You should be getting a program that's fitting how much time you have. I've said this publicly before. Before you leave your office, put on some walking shoes. And when you pull into your driveway at your house, do not go inside. Literally just start walking down the street, walk for 7.5 minutes, right? Turn around and come back. That's 15 minutes of walking out and back before you go in the house and everybody starts pulling on you, right?
Yeah.
But 15 minutes, now Monday through Friday, you've got yourself a little over an hour's worth of walking. And all you did was go 7.5 minutes out, 7.5 minutes back before everybody started picking on you. You didn't have to wake up to an alarm. You didn't have to do it after everybody. You didn't have to go change clothes. Reduce friction. That's all I want is people to reduce friction.
And just even that little bit of time, it adds up. And that's what's crazy is you start adding that up over the whole year. It's like, man, you really did something and it didn't take that much time, in little chunks.
But that's where sitting in December asking not what the goal is, it's pretty simple. I want to be leaner, stronger, faster. I want to have a stronger marriage. I want to be financially independent. That's great. Those goals are awesome, but that's not your frustration. The frustration is we're now at the end of the year and those things that you wrote down have not become reality. Why? Ask the question. Always comes back to time management. Okay. Ask the question. What did you do with the time? So you do a projected versus actual: sleep, eat, work or school, take care of your family. What do we have left? Let's work with what we have. If it's walking 7.5 minutes out, 7.5 minutes back, you feel good. You get some synovial fluid going. Your joints don't hurt. Like you said, Dan, you get 12 months of that at 1 hour a week. That's 52 hours that you got on your body that you didn't do this year because we didn't have time.
Yep.
And this is something that I don't know if you want to go here now or not. We'll do more, but we've got to break this kind of demented mindset that every workout's got to be guts to the wall. Everything's got to be sprint work. Everything's got to go to the gym and you got to smash yourself. No. Do the exact opposite.
You know what it also is you got to build the habit first.
Yep.
Right. You just got to build that. That's the first goal that you should have is just forming the habit. And if that's going to the gym and you're just going to walk on the treadmill for, 10 or 15 minutes a day.
Yep.
Cool. You want to ride the spin bike? Cool. Just form the habit. Once you form the habit, the rest will come, and it will come as necessary, right? And I wanted to kind of get into this too, Coach, assuming that somebody has the time, right? They've managed their time and they're ready to take the next step. Because would you agree the first thing is you got to figure out when you're going to have time to implement this.
That's
That
why I
is,
wanted to start
yeah.
with your frustration isn't what you've laid out to do. It's not having the time to get it done. And the only way to figure it out is what did you fill the time with, projected versus actual. Like you said, because the first is you got to be mentally committed to the process. You've got to reduce the friction. And that's leads us up to where you're at right now.
And this is what I do, because I'll be honest, I fall off the bandwagon all the time just because life gets busy, right? But when I try to get back on the bandwagon, like say I'm going to go back and I'm going to get back in the gym, right? I'll go to the gym with not a lot of expectation. In fact, sometimes I'll go to the gym and I don't even know what the hell I'm going to do at the gym that day. I don't have a plan. It's just the fact to get there, right? And it's just to build that habit. But once I do that, then you want to get serious, right? You want to like, okay, I need to lose some weight, or I need to lose X amount of body fat. I need to start eating right. It comes with the rest of the things that needs to be done, right? But that next thing, Coach, that I feel that needs to be done, I think you'll agree with me, is you need to get a baseline of yourself, right? If that's whether or not you're wanting to lose some body fat, you're wanting to gain muscle, um, whatever you want to, your legs want to be stronger. You gotta have that plan, right? And I want to talk a little bit about setting or getting those baseline numbers, right? Whether it's measuring your arms or measuring your belly. I want to talk about that so you can document where you're at, so you can start showing growth, or trying to figure out where you need to be.
Yeah, you've brought up something that I think has a lot of meat on the bone. In this is going to sound a little bit harsh at first, but I think it'll start to soften up here the longer we speak about it. I think you have to make all alternatives non-existent. What's the mother of invention? Necessity, right? So as long as you've always got an out, and that's where I think, like when you look at the cell phone, it's there 24/7, 365. Why do we dive into it? Because it's so easy. Right? It's interesting because when we first started today's conversation, the whole idea was let's reduce the friction to improve the statistical chances that it's going to happen. Well, the only way you can do that is essentially eliminate every alternative. There is no room for anything else but, if you get stranded on an island, if your boat decides, the motor decides, you have two choices, either start paddling or start swimming. But otherwise, you're going to stay in the middle of the ocean, right? And as we move into what you were just talking about, which is incredibly important, is what if, and this is a very harsh example, what if your doctor said, this is a life or death situation? Because if you go back to what we spoke about, this is probably almost a year ago now, cells make up tissue, tissue makes up organs, and a series of organs makes up a system. Well, when you get diagnosed with a fatigue-related disease, the system itself is has been attacked. That's why getting your blood done on a regular basis is designed to try to keep you from hedging it off before it becomes a problem. Well, if I take every option out of and the doctor says, look, if you don't lose 50 pounds, you're going to die. You're like, okay, well, that's a pretty big alternative, right? Either exercise or die. All of a sudden you manage to find time. And that's where I think it's super important as we get into this idea of creating a baseline. Do the baseline as if your life depends on it. Now, again, that can sound a little bit harsh. We're not trying to be that harsh, but if you're not healthy, what good are you to your family? We all want to be lean. We all want to be fast. We want to ride longer. We want to be safer. That's great. That's totally selfish about us. What about everybody else in your family? If you're coming home and they always and I, again, going to rip a scab off here, married 25 years and counseling for 15, this will hopefully some dollars will benefit our listeners, right? What good is it for me to come home and essentially be a chewed up piece of meat when everybody got the best of me all day, and then I come home and my family gets sloppy seconds? I'm short-tempered because I've got low blood sugar. I'm short-tempered because I'm exhausted. I'm short-tempered because I don't have time, right? I have too much month at the end of the money, whatever it may be. What are we doing? How long are we going to stay on this pattern and this trend before we go draw the line in the sand, put a period at the end of the sentence, turn the page? Because with what you were saying right there is so many people don't have a starting point. And that's where I do agree with you 100%. What are your baselines? You think that you're out of shape. Are you? You think you're fat. Are you? See, that's where we were teasing earlier. You got to be careful about the questions you ask yourself.
Yeah.
Right. And as soon as you start going down that, now what's happening is, if you can imagine, you're at the starting line of 100, let's say that you could run a mile of hurdles, extreme example. Well, all you see is 100 hurdles between where you're at and where you want to get to. That's too many. So you're not even motivated to get, when the gun goes off, you're not even motivated to go past the first, because you're like, by hurdle number 4, I'm done. Eliminate the hurdles. What's your only hurdle you need to focus on right now? Get started. All right. When are you going to get started? That's why we always go back to the calendar. Now that you found 11 minutes a week, and I say that as sincerely as I can, you've now told me that you've got 11 minutes this week to exercise. Now we can decide what we're going to do with it. Are we going to walk? Are we going to foam roll? Are we going to do contrast therapy? You could hang upside down on an inversion table and get the pressure off your spine, and you might improve the mobility of your lower back. But we started with 11 minutes. And then this goes back to what you said, Dan. Now that 11 minutes, you feel better. You're like, "Ooh, that feels good." Motivation's starting to gain some momentum. Now you're more eager to start saying no to fill in the blank, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. I just got to check it. I'm just going to check quickly. I'm at a red light. I'm going to check it. Instead of being at a red light and sitting with your sitting with your spiral notebook going, "All right, I'm trying to scale my business." Just keep that every time you have a red light. And this is what's so cool, Dan. And I see this all the time. You ever been at a red light? It feels like it freaking lasts forever.
Oh yeah.
Start taking notes and watch how fast that light goes by. You're like, "Damn it, light turned green."
People honking behind you. Oh,
yeah, exactly.
Oh, idiot.
Now, what are the people behind you thinking? Assholes on TikTok, right?
Yeah.
No, you're working on your business plan. So then when you go to your daily planner and you're like, "All right, I've got 1 hour of focus work to scale my business," you open that spiral notebook and then you know exactly what you're going to work on for that 1 hour. So you created the time, you created the content, but how did you create the content? Every time you're at a red light. Now, there's going to be people, and I agree with you 100%, that are going to throw me under the bus and say, "Yeah, but that's very fragmented thinking." Yeah, but it's better than getting on TikTok that's not growing your business. You're better off sending a text message to your partner to let them know you're thinking about them, not to blow smoke up their skirt, but because you're trying to make your relationship grow, get good, and stay good. You're trying to get leaner, stronger, faster, and stay there. You're trying to get out of debt and stay out of debt. You're trying to build a business, grow a business, stay there. When are you going to do it? Now you're sitting there, the traffic lights, man, you're just blowing stuff up. You're mind mapping. It doesn't matter how pretty it is. It's your spiral notebook. You get an idea. Hey, I need to reach out to somebody that I think they could really use that tool that I'm coming up with, or I'm going to send it to somebody. I'm going to send it to Bones Bacon and see if he really thinks it's something that really would work with suspension, because you have a great relationship with him and you know that he's going to help you out. You're writing that down, and then you get 11 seconds. Boom, you fire that email off. You just grew your business.
Yep.
It all comes down to time. But what you didn't do is get caught up on what so-and-so was doing on Instagram, which is usually fake anyways.
Yep.
Right?
Exactly.
So you start reverse engineering the success. Well, then it leads us to the baseline. What am I starting with? It might be as bad as you thought.
Yeah.
It might not be nearly as bad as you thought.
Yep.
So we'll talk a little bit more when we get to the next month, because we're going to start building structure, but we needed to start today by establishing time. And that's what I want to leave everybody with. I use Microsoft Outlook from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed. Every single minute, I usually do them in 30-minute blocks, but every single 30-minute block is laid out. And then next to it, I write what I actually did. And then what I would encourage you to do is just do it I'd love for you to do it for a week, but do it for 1 or 2 days. And then just start looking at what actually got in the way. Is that something that can't be moved? I'll give you a very brief example, Dan. We had a young athlete who was very big in his church, and he was going to go to the gym and work out on Wednesdays, but they also had youth group on Wednesday night. And he just didn't really put it together, right? Every week he was missing 1 strength workout a week. And he's like, "What's going on?" He didn't realize he wanted to get 3 workouts a weekend, but he so enjoys youth night that he would go to youth group on Wednesday night, and then he gets to the end of the week and goes, it literally did not resonate with him. And my whole thing is, I said to him, obviously you've gone to youth group every week this month. That's important to you. That's cool.
Yeah.
Find another day. We have to move the weight workout to where you have a spot. And for the parents, when you have time with your children and you're being your children's dad, that's awesome. Those are memories. Don't resent it. And this is where it's going to sound very hokey, right? I don't want you to be at the soccer game thinking about being at work. I don't want you at work thinking about your wife. And I don't want you to be with your wife thinking about going and riding. Be, as foofy as it sounds, be in the moment. And it is not, you're talking about being powerful. You want to get more out of your gym workout? Get to the gym when you said you were. And let's say that we want to work on your strength or whatever. You'll get more out of that workout by being at that spot at the right time. You've reduced the friction, right? You're right where you needed to be. You got there on time. You did your warm up. You nailed your main set. You nailed your recovery. You did your cool down. You're walking back out on time. You're not rushing. You slide into the house maybe 5 minutes early because you hit a couple lights. Now things are flowing. You're 30 minutes early going to bed and you're like, holy cow. Well, there's your 30 minutes. How'd you make it?
Yep.
Reduce friction earlier in the day. Make some dinner and then pack it for lunch tomorrow. You saved yourself 10 minutes tomorrow morning. Maybe you sleep in 10 minutes. Or Dan, maybe you grab your spiral notebook and start converting those ideas to business.
That's what needs to happen.
Start steamrolling it. So, but Dan, I hope this set the context, of where we're going.
It does. And this was an important first step, right? It's just a harsh reality that we got to find time. We need to make the time, right?
Make the time. That isn't going to fall.
The time. You got to make the time.
Leverage it.
You got to form the habit, set the baseline. And then Coach, I'm going to just tease the next topic. And that's going to be what's important to us, right? Whether or not, like I said earlier, whether or not you just want to ride more safe as a vet rider, or you want to go chase a 40 plus Loretta's title, you got to be strong. So we're going to talk a little bit more and dive into the strength in motorcycle racing as a vet rider and racer. And Coach, I thank you so much. I thank all of our listeners on YouTube, all the podcast forums. We appreciate you guys. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Always keep leaving those comments. We love reading the comments in the YouTube section. They're really good. You have a question, drop the question there. A lot of our content comes up from our listeners, Coach. So
absolutely.
Anything you else you'd like to add?
Just want to say thanks. The numbers continue to grow. And Dan, I want to personally thank you. I know you're a one-arm paper hanger busy. And on behalf of all the listeners, thank you very much. And we will see you guys next month.
See you guys.
Peace.